What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman. Coming up on today's show, are the Vikings interested in Justin Fields? ESPN had an interesting tidbit about that. And then also, an NFL insider had a very interesting quote coming from the NFL Scouting Combine around the latest on our quarterback, Kirk Cousins. What teams are interested in him? Are the Vikings willing to give him a fully guaranteed deal? Stay tuned for that. And then also, we obviously know Danielle Hunter is supposed to be a free agent this upcoming free agency period. What will the Vikings do at the edge rusher position if they do not bring him back? We'll get to that at the later half of today's show. But let's dive right into the Justin Fields situation with Minnesota. So there's a report that came out from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, and he said Justin Fields could be an option for Minnesota moving forward. Obviously, if they were to lose Kirk Cousins, whether it be the Atlanta Falcons or like the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency. But this is what Jeremy Fowler had to say on the latest round Justin Fields. He said, Chicago will need multiple teams in the fray to drive a market. And after asking around, I expect Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Las Vegas, and Minnesota to be on Fields' radar. And listen, we knew Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Las Vegas, they were all in on Fields. But this is kind of the first real report that we got that the Vikings could be interested being interested in bringing in Fields. Obviously, we know, obviously the biggest question you got to ask is, will the Bears be willing to send Fields within the division? Do they want to face him 2 times a year? I don't know the answer to that question, but let's just say the Vikings have the best offer on the table. Does it make sense for Minnesota to bring him in? Let's talk about it. But starting with the Justin Fields from a passing perspective here, obviously this is where the biggest question marks and red flags of his game come, because obviously, the completion percentage sitting around 60% over the first 3 seasons is not ideal, and he's just shown a inability to consistently pass from within the pocket, and that's why even the touchdowns to interception ratio is not too great as well. But it's a dual threat ability for Justin Fields, which you love so much. I mean, back in 2022, him running for over 1,100 yards, also having 8 touchdowns. And it's just like Justin Fields, he's almost like a human highlight reel. Like, if you go turn on just his 2023-2024 season highlights, like, you would think that this guy is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He pops off the screen. He's probably the best rushing quarterback in the league right now. Him or Lamar Jackson, kind of pick your poison on that. But the talent is there with Fields. It's just, can he develop kind of the passing side of the game and just keep on taking steps where it's like, he doesn't need to only rely on his legs. The legs can kind of be almost icing on the cake. But I do want to get to this point. How would Justin Jefferson feel about this? And I don't want to always kind of, when I'm making kind of decisions, for, obviously for the Minnesota Vikings, you don't want to obviously, put it all on Justin Jefferson and, always think about what he is thinking. But I think with, him and not signing that extension yet and him coming out and saying he's not signing an extension until they have the plan at quarterback. If you go to Justin and you say, hey, we're going to have Fields as the quarterback next season, we may draft a guy, I don't know how he would necessarily feel about that. So I think you got to consider what 18 would have to think. But in terms of my thoughts on Fields heading to the Vikings, I'm probably out on it. I would rather have them either just draft a quarterback or obviously, bring back Kirk Cousins on a 2-year deal. I'd rather go those 2 options instead of, trading a second-round pick for Fields. But I do want to ask you guys this question before we dive into more around Danielle Hunter and Kirk Cousins. I'm actually going to make this the pinned comment on today's video. Kind of want to get some feedback from you guys, a little looking in the mirror moment for us here at Chat Sports. But how likely are you to recommend this show to another Vikings fan, maybe a family member or a friend? Just let me know down in the comment section. Scale it to me 1 through 10. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So rumors from the Combine are swirling around Kirk Cousins. I feel like he is the biggest domino to fall in this free agency period, and he will kind of steer the ship on where other quarterbacks like Justin Fields, may fall. But lots of different rumors are coming out around the NFL Combine. Actually, Alec Lewis, beat reporter for The Athletic, who covers the Minnesota Vikings, wrote up this interesting piece. He said, if Atlanta does not push Minnesota, who will? Talking about Kirk Cousins. The Las Vegas Raiders, they need a quarterback, but general manager Tom Telesco might consider his experience of trying to win early in San Diego and how that affected the future. The Washington Commanders' leadership might want to quickly alter the franchise perception, but the Commanders' roster is less well-rounded. He carried on to say, the Vikings want Cousins back, but on their terms. They believe his best option is with exceptional weapons, familiar system, and a city and locker room that have came to appreciate him for who he is. Whether Cousins agrees will likely depend on the gulf between the Vikings offer and another team's. But again, there has to be another team. And overall, I do think the Vikings are in a tough spot right now because they're just kind of playing the waiting game here. I actually guarantee you the Vikings front office has came to Kirk Cousins and offered him a deal similar to, I don't know the exact dollar figures, but I'm pretty certain that they have came to him and said, hey, 2 for 50, 2 for 60, fully guaranteed. But I don't think they would ever get to that 2 for 90 number or 2 for 100 number. That's why the Vikings are kind of in a tough spot right now because they don't want to give Kirk that big-time $100 million fully guaranteed deal over the next 2 to 3 seasons. They kind of want to get him back on a team-friendly deal, kind of use his love for the city and his want to keep his family in Minnesota almost against him for maybe he can sign, a better contract. And that's why the Vikings are in a tough spot. Also gets me to this point. After the NFL scouting combine, quarterbacks are going to go a lot higher than most people think in this year's draft. We've heard the buzz around J.J. McCarthy, talked about him yesterday, that he is almost a guaranteed top 10 pick. He could even go top 5, which I think, is nuts. But those are reports coming out of the combine. And, that does leave the Vikings at 11 where it's like, okay, you're either going to have to maybe pay more than you want for Kirk Cousins to bring him back for 2 years, or you're going to have to go trade up in the NFL draft, use more draft capital to go get your guy. Vikings are just in a tough spot right now, but I want to get you guys involved here on today's show. Where will Kirk Cousins play in 2024? Predict it for me. If you think it's the Vikings, you let me know down in the comment section. Maybe you think it's the Falcons or he's going somewhere else. Let me know where you think Kirk will play. I'm still going Minnesota, but let me know your thoughts down below. We got to talk about it. What the hell are the Vikings going to do at edge rusher? Because I think it is more and more likely that the Vikings do lose Danielle Hunter to free agency just because of the cap situation and him wanting, a lot more than I think the Vikings are willing to dish out. This is what Kwesi had to say about Danielle Hunter heading into free agency. He said this. He says, it's not just about this season, but the next season. The players have their needs. This is the key part right here. He says the players have their needs. We will go to the table and try to figure it out and see if we can talk about a way to find a deal to meet in the middle. And I do think it's incredibly unlikely that he returns to Minnesota. I would be shocked. I would be thrilled, but I think it would be more likely that he would actually take a discount with a team like the New York Giants because he's familiar with Andre Patterson, the defensive line coach. He doesn't really have any ties to any of the defensive staff with Minnesota right now. Vikings are probably going to offer him $20 million a year. I think he's going to shut the door and go test free agency, and that's maybe where the Vikings are going to have to head if they don't bring back Danielle Hunter. Here's some of the top edge free agents that are out there right now. Obviously, if I had to choose one guy, it'd probably be number 99. But, Josh Allen most likely will get franchise tagged. Brian Burns most likely will get franchise tagged. Could be Bryce Huff, Chase Young, some younger options. Jonathan Greenard, another good guy, but I'm probably out on a guy like Clowney, Zadarius Smith, Josh Uche, Leonard Floyd. So the Vikings even had another tough spot at edge. But I say, why not pay Danielle Hunter the bag? I mean, what he did last season was absolutely phenomenal. He really upped his game, especially in the run defense side of things. 23 TFLs. He was definitely playing very well at around the line of scrimmage, making plays, but 16.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 85 pressures on the season. He's actually got the second most pressures in the NFL over the last 2 years, only behind, I believe it was T.J. Watt. So Hunter's one of the best edge rushers in the league. You need edges to win in the NFL at the highest level. Bring him back, offer him $25 a year. At least that's what I would do. But let's just say you want to go internal options. Two guys that and I know you guys might be laughing at Marcus Davenport right now, but let me get to him in a second. Andre Carter, people forget, UDFA out of Army, the really talented edge rusher, did not play too much this season, but he was a developmental kind of signing for the Vikings. He was actually, before last year's draft, he was projected to be a first-round pick. Had a down senior season, so obviously went to a UDFA, but he's got all types of talent here. This guy right here, though, Marcus Davenport. Obviously, the Vikings would have to bring him back, but he has actually came out and said he's open to a team-friendly deal. Only played in 2 games this past season. The talent is there with Davenport. I know the injury history kind of acts like a jackass whenever he's talking to the media, but the talent's there. Dude was a first-round pick. If he can just get it together, I think these are 2 solid internal options to replace Hunter if you don't want to even test draft or free agency, but I think you do. Like, if the Vikings, you lose Danielle Hunter, you are staring at Patrick Jones, DJ Wonnum coming off a season-ending injury, and then, Andre Carter. Those only guys you have for sure on the roster. You need to target somebody in the draft, in free agency. You know, there's 3 edges that I really like: Latu, Verse, and Dallas Turner out of Bama. Like, those are guys you could take at 11th if you aren't going to take a quarterback. But in 2 of the most important positions in the NFL, and obviously quarterback and edge rusher, Vikings got some tough decisions to make. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel to stay up to date. But let me ask you guys this: how much per year would you offer to Danielle Hunter? I'm probably going max 25 a year. I would do it, though. I would give him 25 a year, but probably no more than that. 3 for 75, 60, 65 fully guaranteed. That's probably where I would go. But let me know what you guys would do down in the comment section. And make sure you guys are subscribed here to the channel. Appreciate all the support we've had on the channel as of late. We will keep you guys posted all next week when free agency starts on Monday. So hit that subscribe button and lock us in. Skol Vikes.